Ma'am, which floor are you headed?
28, please. I live here.
What kind of work do you do?
I work in law at the federal courthouse.
Show me what's in your bag. Are there some KFC chicken?
You'll regret this.
We'll see. Give me your hands.
A quiet evening return home turned into one of the most shocking incidents. In recent law enforcement history, a respected federal judge was heading back to her apartment after a long and demanding day at the federal courthouse. She was still wearing her black judicial robe when she stepped into the elevator of her upscale high-rise building, looking forward to nothing more than taking off her heels, changing into comfortable clothes, and finally relaxing. What happened inside that elevator would be captured on security cameras and later become national news, sparking intense debates about racial profiling, abuse of power, and the lack of accountability in policing. Two police officers entered the elevator just as the doors were closing. Almost immediately, they began questioning the judge in a suspicious and confrontational manner. Despite her calm and professional responses, the officers grew increasingly aggressive and hostile. They demanded to see her identification, questioned why she was in the building, and eventually stopped the elevator between floors. What followed was an illegal detention filled with unfounded accusations, an unauthorized search of her belongings, and multiple clear violations of her constitutional rights. The officers refused to believe that the black woman standing in front of them could possibly be a sitting federal judge. Even after she calmly presented her official judicial credentials, they continued to treat her with deep suspicion and open disrespect. The entire encounter was recorded, both by the building's high-definition security cameras and by the judge herself on her phone. The evidence would later prove to be overwhelming and indisputable. When building security and higher-ranking officers finally arrived on the scene, the truth came out in full force. The woman the two officers had been aggressively detaining and harassing for nearly 20 minutes was in fact a sitting federal judge. The situation escalated rapidly from a local encounter into a full federal matter. The body camera footage and elevator security videos clearly showed a pattern of racial profiling, abuse of power, and multiple constitutional violations. What should have been a simple ride up to her apartment had turned into an illegal detention filled with unfounded accusations and disrespectful treatment. Federal investigators were brought in almost immediately. What they uncovered was deeply troubling. The officers had ignored the judge's official credentials, conducted an illegal search of her personal belongings, fabricated reasons for their actions, and even stopped the elevator between floors to prolong the encounter. The evidence, crystal clear video, audio recordings, witness statements, and official documents, left almost no room for denial. The two officers involved were placed under immediate investigation. The case revealed not just individual bad decisions, but a deeper and more systemic problem within the department. The mountain of proof painted a disturbing picture of how bias and assumptions can override basic facts and professional conduct. This wasn't simply a misunderstanding. It was a clear demonstration of how quickly prejudice can turn a routine situation into a constitutional crisis, even when the person being targeted is a highly respected federal judge who spends her days upholding the law. The incident quickly gained national attention. News outlets across the country began covering the story, highlighting the shocking contrast between the judge's professional status and the way she had been treated simply because of the color of her skin. As the investigation deepened, more details emerged about the officers' conduct. Their actions went far beyond poor judgment. They included false statements, illegal detention, and a complete disregard for the judge's clearly stated rights. The body camera footage became the centerpiece of the case, showing the moment the officers refused to accept her identification and continued their aggressive questioning even after learning her true position. The color drained from both officers' faces as the reality of their situation finally hit them. They had just illegally detained, harassed, and searched a sitting federal judge, all while on camera. The detective in charge took control of the situation immediately. She examined the judge's credentials carefully under the bright lobby lights and confirmed her identity with the federal courthouse. Within minutes, it became crystal clear that the woman standing in front of them was exactly who she claimed to be, a respected federal judge who had been presiding over cases that very same day. The two officers tried desperately to justify their actions. They claimed the identification was fake, suggested the judge was impersonating a federal official, and even tried to argue that their behavior was standard procedure. But their excuses fell flat in front of multiple witnesses, security footage, and the judge's own audio recording that had captured every word. The detective made the extraordinary decision to place both officers under immediate arrest for federal civil rights violations. Their badges and weapons were confiscated on the spot, and they were handcuffed right there in the elegant lobby of the luxury building, the same place where they had tried to humiliate an innocent resident. The irony was lost on no one. The officers who had treated a federal judge like a criminal suspect were now experiencing the same loss of freedom and dignity they had tried to impose on her. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, reporters were gathered outside the building. The story was too explosive to ignore. A federal judge had been illegally detained and harassed in her own apartment building simply because of the color of her skin. Federal judges rarely find themselves on the wrong side of police encounters, and when they do, it usually means something has gone catastrophically wrong with law enforcement. The federal investigation moved quickly. The FBI opened a civil rights case within 24 hours. The security footage and the judge's secret audio recording provided devastating evidence that made denial almost impossible. The recordings clearly showed the officers ignoring her credentials, conducting an illegal search, fabricating charges, and continuing their aggressive behavior even after learning who she really was. The case revealed not just individual misconduct, but a deeper pattern of racial profiling. Federal prosecutors determined that the officers' actions were driven by bias rather than any legitimate police concern. The federal trial that followed became a landmark case in civil rights law. The evidence presented was overwhelming and nearly impossible to refute. The jury watched the security camera footage from the elevator and listened to the judge's secret audio recording that captured every word, every accusation, and every constitutional violation. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all major counts. The two officers were convicted of deprivation of civil rights under color of law, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to violate constitutional rights. The judge presiding over the case delivered a powerful statement during sentencing, emphasizing that no one, not even those who are a badge, hid above the law. Both officers received significant federal prison sentences. Their law enforcement careers were permanently over. What began as a routine elevator ride home had cost them everything because they could not accept the simple truth standing right in front of them. This case became much more than just one incident in an elevator. It turned into a powerful national example of how racial profiling and unchecked bias can lead to serious constitutional violations, even when the victim is a sitting federal judge who spends her days upholding the law. The story raised important questions that continue to resonate across the country. If this can happen to a federal judge in her own apartment building, what does that mean for ordinary citizens who don't have the same knowledge of the law or resources to fight back? The judge chose not to stay silent. She pursued justice through the proper legal channels, and her courage helped highlight the need for better training, accountability, and meaningful reform within law enforcement. This incident serves as a stark reminder that no one is immune to prejudice, and that true justice requires constant vigilance from all of us. The apartment building's management company found itself in an awkward position, having promised residents a secure environment free from harassment and discrimination. The fact that two police officers had been able to detain and humiliate a resident in their own building raised serious questions about security procedures and the screening of law enforcement personnel who entered the property. Building management immediately implemented new policies requiring all police officers to be escorted by security staff and to provide detailed justification for any resident contacts. As news of the incident continued to spread, it became clear that the officers' careers in law enforcement were over. No police department would hire officers who had been caught on camera illegally detaining a federal judge, and their actions had created liability issues that would follow them for the rest of their professional lives. The incident would become a case study in police academies and law schools across the country, a perfect storm of bias, poor judgment, and abuse of power that destroyed careers while strengthening the cause of civil rights and police accountability. Asterisk. The aftermath of that single elevator ride would extend far beyond the marble lobby of Meridian Towers. It became a watershed moment that forced the entire country to confront uncomfortable truths about racial profiling, police accountability, and the fragility of justice in everyday American life. The federal judge at the center of the case chose not to remain silent. In the weeks and months that followed, she became a powerful voice for reform. She gave interviews, spoke at legal conferences, and testified before congressional committees about the realities of racial bias in law enforcement. Her calm, measured, and deeply informed perspective carried immense weight because she was not an activist or a politician. She was a sitting federal judge who had personally experienced the very injustices she had spent her career trying to correct from the bench. She established a foundation dedicated to documenting incidents of racial profiling, providing legal resources to victims, and pushing for mandatory bias training and body camera accountability measures across police departments nationwide. Her courage inspired countless other judges, attorneys, and everyday citizens to speak out about their own experiences with unfair treatment by law enforcement. What began as one humiliating encounter in an elevator became a catalyst for broader conversations about systemic change. The two officers involved in the incident saw their lives permanently altered. Their convictions and lengthy prison sentences sent a clear message through law enforcement communities across the country. No one is above the law, and abusing authority based on race will carry severe consequences. Police academies began using the case as a training example of what not to do, highlighting how quickly poor judgment and unchecked bias can destroy careers and violate constitutional rights. The apartment building implemented sweeping new security policies. All police officers entering the property now had to be escorted by building security and provide clear justification for any resident contact. The management company issued a public apology to the judge and offered additional security measures for all residents, particularly those from minority communities. The case also sparked intense debate within the legal community. Judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys across the country discussed how implicit bias can affect even the most routine interactions. Many law schools added the incident to their curricula as a case study in civil rights law, constitutional protections, and the importance of police accountability for the judge herself. The experience was both dramatic and transformative. She had spent years presiding over cases involving police misconduct and civil rights violations, but nothing could have prepared her for becoming the victim in one of those cases. The incident reinforced her belief that true justice requires constant vigilance and that no one, not even a federal judge, is immune to prejudice. She continued her work on the federal bench with even greater determination, using her platform to advocate for reforms that would make such incidents less likely in the future. Her colleagues on the bench rallied around her, issuing public statements condemning the officer's conduct and calling for systemic changes to prevent similar violations. The Meridian Towers incident became required study material in police academies and law schools nationwide. It was a perfect storm of racial bias, poor judgment, and abuse of power that destroyed careers while strengthening the cause of civil rights and police accountability. In the end, this case was not just about one judge, one elevator, or to officers. It was about something much larger: the persistent reality of racial profiling in American society and the courage required to stand up against it. Even when the system itself is supposed to protect you, it served as a powerful reminder that justice is not automatic. It must be actively defended every single day by those who believe in it. And sometimes, the most powerful defense comes from an individual who refuses to stay silent when her rights are violated If this story affected you, if it made you angry, if it made you think about your own experiences or the experiences of people you care about, then please take a moment right now to show your support. Drop a like if you believe that no one should be treated this way simply because of the color of their skin. Leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from tonight. Share your thoughts. Share your stories. This is a safe space to talk about these important issues. And if you want to see more stories like this, stories that expose injustice, demand accountability, and fight for real change, then hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring these stories to light every single week. Thank you for watching until the very end. Your support means everything. Stay aware, stay strong, and never stop demanding justice.